You know, there's been a lot of chatter in this chamber over the past year and a half that we first termers have been here about the importance of democracy. It's oh so important that we echo the voice of the people, that we provide access to those whom we represent, to the process, so that they understand what's going on and so they can vote accordingly, so that the government that we offer them is by the consent of the governed. The interesting thing about that is, if that was in fact the goal, one of the things that you would really try to do is be very specific and open with what it is that you're accomplishing with your legislation. Students want to be seen. That's what this does. Last year we talked about teaching history as if that's never happened before. You know, I'm probably the median age of everyone in this room, so a lot of us went to school decades ago. Did you not learn about Black history in school? Were you not taught about the Civil War? Were you not taught about Jim Crow? I was. Were you not taught Native studies? Taught about the tribes? Taught about treaties? All that stuff was in my social studies curriculum. South Washington County, Cottage Grove, Park Senior High. I don't know, maybe they were ahead of the curve. But we learned that. This isn't about history. It's not about being seen. What it's about, and look, we have the receipts, and I love this. I love the fact, one of the things we can all be proud of as Minnesotans and as Minnesotan legislators is that we have a fantastic legislative website where we can go back to the 90s, go back to when I was in school, and look at all the bills and all the committee meetings and all the floor sessions. But we don't have to go back that far. We go back last year. The fourth engrossment of this bill, where we ended up passing, we passed the fifth engrossment. The fourth engrossment, which was debated on this floor before it changed into the fifth, had this definition of anti-racist, which, just to provide some context, part of the purpose of ethnic studies is to be anti-racist. This is how it was defined in the fourth engrossment of the bill. Anti-racist means actively working to identify and eliminate racism in all its forms so that power and resources are redistributed and shared equitably among racial groups. Now, I cited that last year, much as I just did now. And I don't know for sure, and I can't speak to motive, that's against our rules, but it is interesting that by the time we got to the fifth engrossment, which is the one you passed, that definition changed. Anti-racist in the law that was passed means actively working to identify and eliminate racism in all its forms, so far the same, in order to change policies, behaviors, and beliefs that perpetuate racist ideas and actions. Much more gentle, easier to swallow, easier to accept. But the intent of the fourth engrossment survived the process. How do we know? Well, because we can read what you're doing. We can read the social studies standards. One person who's read them is Catherine Kirsten, former Star Tribune columnist, writing for The Federalist. She writes, "To see what's coming, look at Minnesota, where this spring," this is in October of 2023 that she's writing this, "lawmakers enacted what are likely the most radical education measures in the nation. This is ethnic studies in its liberated form, which not only teaches race-based identities and white privilege, but incites students to take action to disrupt and dismantle America's fundamental social and political institutions." That sounds awfully political, don't you think? How is that an educational goal? Our educational goal in the state of Minnesota is to disrupt and dismantle our institutions? Minnesota's new K through 12 social studies standards exemplify this ideology. The standards add ethnic studies to the core social studies disciplines of history, civics, economics, and geography, and incorporates its concepts throughout. One ethnic studies anchor standard is titled resistance. Resistance. We're going to teach our kids to resist. Resist what? America? Their country? Their state? Their mom? Their dad? Their neighbor? Their employer? Who are they resisting? Who are you teaching our kids to resist in the state of Minnesota? It requires students to, quote, organize with others to resist systemic and coordinated exercise of power. There's that word, power. Took it out of the statute, took it out of the bill, but it sure is still in the instruction manual for all the teachers, ain't it? Against marginalized and oppressed groups, these new standards and their related benchmarks prime youngsters to view American institutions with suspicion and hostility from the earliest grades. Kindergartners, for example, must retell a story about an unfair experience that conveys a power imbalance. 5-year-olds, folks. 5-year-olds. First graders must identify examples of ethnicity, equality, liberation, and systems of power, and use those examples to construct meanings for those terms. 6 years old. Goes on to say, the ethnic studies-driven campaign to discredit American institutions as illegitimate is most clearly evident in the standards that focus on criminal justice. This is my favorite part. Students will study our police departments and justice system in connection with an ethnic studies standard that requires them to, quote, understand the roots of contemporary systems of oppression and eliminate injustices. Fifth graders, for example, will examine contemporary policing and its alleged historical roots in early America. The claim is that our police departments spring directly from slave patrols of the Old South, and that's somehow relevant to today, to 2024. Sixth graders will study the impact of Minnesota's juvenile justice system on youth from historically disenfranchised groups. High school students suggest the notion of criminality itself is racist. Criminality itself is racist. That explains a lot. I sat on the Public Safety Committee. I've seen that yarn spun all day long. No wonder we're letting all the criminals out. No wonder one of the strategic goals of the Department of Corrections is zero warehousing, zero. Let them all out. Give them services. Offer a scholarship in criminality. Biased, misleading instruction of this kind will likely convince many young people that policing and the very idea of criminality are oppressive, racially constructed, and among the many things schools are instructing them to resist. Last year I talked about my personal experience, the fact that I come from a biracial family. I'm in a biracial family. I got biracial children. Since then, I've learned about all of your mixed-race families. And I'm really excited about the fact that we exemplify the very dream that MLK got up on the National Mall and pointed towards. Little black kids and little white kids playing together, not thinking about each other's color. You talk about going backwards. This goes backwards. This goes backwards to a time when everyone was judged by the color of their skin. You're going to teach my sons to look upon half of their family with suspicion? To distrust police? To dismantle institutions? You're going to teach them that in school. Pretty silent. None of the usual paper ruffling conversations in the alcoves. I seem to have your attention. While Minnesota is paying attention. Madam Speaker, I'd like to request a roll call vote.
Representative Hudson requests a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Hudson.
Vote green in order to forestall this abuse of my children and yours and every child in the state of Minnesota.